I always get excited about reading this book. I did not read ahead, and so I'm dying to get to the next chapter each time I read, but I have other things to do, so I can't do it overnight. I do hope you're recognizing as I read from this book my conversations with the poor souls. These are poor souls from Purgatory that visited Princess Eugenie van der Leyen in, 1900s actually, that they, through our prayers, change and progress. They come as snakes and monsters and horrible things. And as she prays, they change until eventually they come back very beautiful and they go into the light. It is a book everybody should get. There's a link in the show notes to the book. But I have heard from some of you in Europe and other continents, and you can't get it, or you can't get it in your language. So I am honored to read it to you. Hopefully, I'm reading it slowly enough, but pass this video on to your friends and families. Like, share, subscribe, and this is the way I make my income. It's the only thing I have. So if you feel so inclined and the Holy Spirit leads you, click on the link below at buymeacoffee.com so I can continue the work I do. God bless you. And for those of you that have contributed, they come through and I don't get a chance to say thank you one by one. So thank you. Your $5, your $15, they all matter. God bless you. So with that, let's get some souls prayed for and get them out of purgatory. Today I start on a chapter called Eleanor. May 25th, 1926. I was in H, ... which the author's spiritual director says is a day's journey from the home of this seer. So I'll start again. I was in H for a visit. It found me here again. It is very human, but horrible. It's reminiscent of a Medusa head. May 27th, I was sitting in my N ... Suddenly, someone grabbed my shoulders and shook me. The others saw it and asked, "Are you cold?" I almost froze with fear. It is a horrible woman, really repulsive. May 29th, I saw a floating figure approaching me in the forest. June 2nd, the abominable woman was there a long time, but nothing new. The floating figure came right towards me and was completely enveloped in a light cloud. A very special feeling came over me. Not fear, more happiness. But at the same time, I saw myself and everything bad about me in a whole new light. It was maybe my first good regret. I was in the forest, but saw no more trees. I was locked in a white haze, an only soul. That's why I can't describe it. But what is it that surrounds me and makes me so happy? I realize it has nothing to do with the spirits. The extravagant is so repugnant to me, but I'm afraid I am. I was longing for Holy Communion, which is only rarely possible here. And as I thought about it, there it came. Who can I pour out my heart to but you? I might resist that if you think it better, but frankly, I'd sacrifice it because it's too lucky. But what is it? Can't it come from the evil enemy who wants to get a hold of me? Why should the good Lord send me this token of favor that he only gives to the good? I'm nothing at all. I still don't have virtue in me, just full of unfulfilled intentions. That just makes me uneasy. So now you know everything again. The paper is a great tranquilizer. June 11th, the woman comes almost every night, but there's nothing to do for her. Only prayer seems to please her. June 17th, she finally whispered. She's from Passau, and her name is Eleanor. June 22nd, she almost freaked me out in front of Holy Communion. She shook my arm so much, stood huge next to me. I thought everybody should be able to see it. Can she read minds too? Because hardly had I thought I would give her Holy Communion, and she was gone. At night, she laid her head on my hand, and I felt her eyelashes. I took holy water and poured it on her. She said, "You are merciful." I said, "It was so difficult to help you. Have you been here long?" She said, "If you knew how I sinned, I said, I don't want to know. I can only help you. She said, write to Passau that blah, 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 where she mumbles here and says, it was impossible to understand. It makes me very sad, but it was only a whisper. Hopefully I'll find out. June 24th, I said, tell me immediately what I should write to Passau. She said, the child killed was mine. I said, who do I have to write to? She said, GR ... I said, when did you kill the child? She said, the summer of 1823. I said, but GR isn't alive anymore. She said, I slandered her. I said, I want to see what I can do, but maybe it'll be easier for you because you said so. She said, unhappy, unhappy. Then she was gone. 2 days of complete rest, glorious sleep. June 27th. Something new appeared with a lot of noise and moaning, unrecognizable. It was like a big box. Eleanor also came and gave me a kiss. I don't like that at all. Then I prayed with her for a long time, and she seemed happier. I said, is there anything else I can do for you? She said, don't push me off you. I said, but I'm not doing it. She said, you avoid me when I want to touch you. I said, yeah, it scares me and I can't help you. She said, leave me. Then she snuggled up to me. It may be that it helps her if I make sacrifices for her. If you remember from the other times I read, when they touch Eugenie, it cools them. And actually, what also comes to me is this action of letting their repulsive selves touch her instead of pulling back is also an act of sacrifice for the souls. She just takes on the repugnant smells and sounds and feelings, and they get healed. June 29th, the other terrible one was back. It is like one carrying an incomprehensibly heavy burden. Then Eleanor came back. I said, come on, give me your hand. Then she came up to me laughing. I said, are you feeling better? Because you're laughing. She said, it's over. I said, what is? She said, the desolation. I said, why? She said, because you gave. I said, just today I gave you very little. I had so little time to think about you. She said, your will was sacrificed. I said, when you know everything about me, tell me what else you don't like about me. She said, you're still hesitating in giving. You shouldn't keep it to yourself anymore. Then the new thing came in and she was wiped away. Oh, if only I were as far along as the spirits want. But there is still a long way to go. June 30th, she came towards me on the stairs, laughed at me, and pointed far away with her hand. Maybe that was the end. July 4th. Eleanor is with me often. She doesn't speak anymore and looks content. The heavy laden man is very tormented and restless. You can already distinguish his face. Big gray beard. I don't know him. July 7th, there was a lot of noise in the room during the day. My dresser and the door jumped up, but there was nothing to see. It repeated 4 times. July 9th, reality has complemented the dream. I dreamed that a man with a heavy load came to me and laid the load in front of my bed. I woke up. The man was really standing in front of me, shaking some dark, unrecognizable thing from his hunched back onto the floor. This struck me as so strange that I stood up to make sure I was awake. I wrote it down because it's never been like this before. Eleanor doesn't seem to be coming anymore. I hear a lot of new noise and also calls, but not my name. Hear us! Help us! And then a piercing scream. July 11th. I've done some thorough examination to see if the things I'm writing here are true. And I can honestly say yes. I'm in the habit of reading it over and over again before handing it in, and have often put away what I felt like was excessive. When it comes to the other, maybe my feeling goes too far. Now, there's an asterisk there from her spiritual director that says, for the time being, I will not reproduce the wording of the diary here. These are apparitions and visions that have nothing to do with the poor souls. The visionary also associated a self-characterization with a mention of these visions, which was only intended for the addressee and which is very similar to a confession in a letter. She once wrote, I must now prepare for death and finally get serious about it. Pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? I am thinking of the poor souls more and more daily than I ever did before I read this book. Perhaps that's part of my mission. The Lord gave me this calling years ago. Then he gave me Maria Sima. Then he gave me this book. Then he won't let me stop thinking about, talking about, and teaching about purgatory. I don't want to go there. I want to do everything on this earth that I can to avoid purgatory, which begins with, I don't want to sin. But if you look at a woman like her who still has to detach, I'm so sad to think about what are the sins that I'm not even aware of. And then it also makes me want to do more sacrifices. Then it also makes me want to, well, I think about the novena I'm doing that is hopefully going to help me escape purgatory. And I think also about Divine Mercy Sunday, which I cannot think of another more incomprehensible grace than to fulfill Divine Mercy Sunday and all my sins and punishments are washed away. I have no words for that. God's grace is tremendous. What are your thoughts? I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching this Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.